Okay, so hello, this afternoon we're going to be talking to Lou Evans from Team Novo Nordisk. This is part of the series of interviews that we've been doing for the Ride Leicester Festival 2020. So Lou rides for Team Novo Nordisk, so the first thing we'd like you to do, Lou, is introduce yourself and then just tell us a little bit about Novo Nordisk.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Louis Evans from Team Novo Nordisk. And Team Novo Nordisk are the world's first all-diabetic professional cycling team, and we're on a mission to inspire everyone with diabetes around the world to educate and empower everybody affected by diabetes, which is a massive global community.
That's brilliant. So we're here, so I'm Janet Hudson here with my colleague Andy Salkeld, so we're just going to be having a lovely chat with you this afternoon. So Andy, do you want to kick off?
Yeah, sure. Lou, I'd like to ask you about how you started cycling. So back before you were a professional, when you first got on a bike, can you remember learning to ride for the first time? And what were your early years like before you joined Novo Nordisk?
Well, I remember learning to ride a bike quite vividly. I got the first bike. I don't remember getting the first bike, but I do remember riding for the first time without stabilisers on. We were at a local park at Tittersworth Reservoir in Staffordshire. I was with my nan and granddad, and we took the stabilisers off, and I rode around the grass. I think I was about 3 years old, and I still remember it now. Such a big moment for everybody in their lives, I guess, when they first learn to ride a proper bike. But other than that, I started racing local cyclocross races at age 5. I travelled there with my uncle and my granddad, and I'd compete in a little race. I think they were about 10 minutes long, and that was in the Notts and Derby Cyclocross League, which is still running now, and I've ridden that every year since, up till now, so that's 14 years of cyclocross. But I've ridden all the way through that, but cycling wasn't always my number one sport. I always used to do the cross season, but I didn't really take up training and racing on the road properly until I was about 12, 13 years old, when I decided that I was getting a bit too battered playing rugby all the time. I was a bit smaller than some of the other guys, and I would always come home bruised up. So I started taking cycling a little bit more seriously, and that went from there, really. I got involved with Team Novo Nordisk. I was 16 at the time when I got diagnosed with diabetes. It was a big shock to everyone, including myself. But I found out about Team Novo Nordisk whilst the same day I was in hospital.
Wow.
And I applied to go on their Talent ID camp there. The Talent ID camp is a part of the pipeline that we run as a team, where you can apply online on the website, and people get invited from all over the world to Athens, Georgia, and we ride together for around 10 days, and from there people might be offered a place to join our junior team or join our development team, and sometimes maybe if you're good enough you get straight to the pro team. But I've done two Talent ID camps over in the States. The first time I went, I'd only been diagnosed maybe 6 months, around that kind of time. And I went to the first camp, amazing experience with all those different people, all with diabetes. And I got offered to come back the next year, and I came back the next year having worked a bit stronger and in my place on the team, in the development team.
Lou, that's a fascinating start. I've got a couple of questions. What club were you involved in? Were you a club member in the Nottinghamshire Derby League?
I rode for Hina Clarion for a few years, but then once I began training a bit more, I joined a club which is a little bit more local to me in Stoke-on-Trent. I joined Lyme Racing Club, and I rode with Lyme for some time. I still carried on doing the Nottinghamshire and Derby leagues.
That's really good. I'll pass that message I'll pass your message or your experience on to my nephew, who was also diagnosed at the same age with type 1 diabetes, not type 2 diabetes. And it's a good inspiration. He rides with he and his family ride with the Redditch Road and Path club, so that'd be the West Midlands League as well.
I'm always fascinated by cyclocross because it just looks bonkers to me. This whole idea that I'm a keen cyclist, Lou, but I'm kind of not getting the fact that I need to get off my bike, carry it up steps, run along. So just tell people a little bit about cyclocross and what attracted you to that particular element.
Well, a little bit about cyclocross is that it's an off-road sport first and foremost.
Yeah.
But mainly involves riding around a muddy field in the middle of winter, in the rain, snow, freezing cold.
My point exactly.
And the cross part comes from, sometimes it's actually faster to run with your bike than it is to ride. Sport originated in Belgium, and it's kind of grown and grown in the UK for the past 10 years or so. It's got really big, and I think it's mainly so popular because of the fun element of it. There's a race within a race. It's not just you've missed the lead group or whatever and that's it. It's the case of you could be battling it out for 30th place with another person next to you, and it's all good fun. Slip and sliding off the bike, head to toe in mud, and it's what people talk about. There being two types of fun. There's like a type 1 fun, which is where it's fun at the time that you're doing it, and then there's type 2 where it's fun after the event. And I think in some cases it's definitely that second kind of fun where at the time you're slogging around thinking, why am I doing this? And then afterwards you're like, that was so great, I can't wait to do it again.
Could I ask you to give a shout out to a chap called Dean Barnett? Dean, you might know him from the West Midlands, but over here in the East Midlands, Dean, who's recently changed jobs and he's moving out of Leicester, but for the last 3 or 4 years he set up the Leicestershire Cyclocross League, and it's been an absolute sensation. There are 300 or 400 riders signing up for the events each time.
The Muddy Marvels.
The Muddy Marvels. Yeah. And Dean has been central to kind of setting that up and inspiring an absolute flourishing of cyclocross in Leicester and Leicestershire recently.
Yeah, I've seen it myself, the Leicester League popping up and how popular it's been, and it's a testament to the many volunteers and commissaires and people who put so much time and effort into the cycling community, and they don't expect anything in return. Yeah. But we should be also grateful to these people for the opportunities they create in our local areas and the great events that we all enjoy riding and spectating.
How did you find the transition then from cyclocross to road cycling? Surely it was a breeze, a doddle.
It was definitely far from a breeze for me, because my first road race, I raced just at the local circuit, which is Darley Moor, just outside Bassbourne. It's a motor racing circuit that they hold a lot of cycle events on. Yeah. And I think I just did that series, which was around 8 races. I think I came dead last in all but 1 or 2 races. It would be, they'd blow the whistle, people would ride off, and then that was it. I would never see them again. It was just gone. Now I'm riding around on my own for 20 minutes. And I did that for a whole season.
Wow.
I've just been on my own, and then the last race, like there was a group which is off the back of the front group, which I finally managed to keep up with, and I kind of went from there. And then I came back the next season with the kind of thoughts of, I'm not going to repeat what I did last time, which is dropped every day. And then the next season I came back, and I think I got my best result. I came second place at the same race where the year before I would struggle to hang on, and that's where you really get stuck into it for me, because it's almost addictive. You just want to keep getting better than you were before, and that's one of the great things about cycling is it's not always the race against the other competitors, it's the race against yourself.
And during that first season and then the second season, were you having coaching, or did you have a change your training plan to get you to I'm going to say from a type 3 enjoyment up to a type 2 enjoyment?
Yeah, I think I never really had any coaching until much later on, when I've been cycling. Like proper regimented training, but
yeah.
I think Lime RC, my local club, they were so helpful. They were holding training sessions in the weekdays where we come together as a group on the watt bikes, on the stationary bikes, and train together in the winter, and they hold race leagues at Newcastle Track, the track league there, and various other little races that run all the time locally. Road races, which kind of started getting me more up to that level, and I didn't do specific stuff training wise, but I kind of thought, I'll just go out and enjoy riding the bike, and that's kind of got me everywhere so far, just the enjoyment for the sport.
Yeah, I guess that you naturally relax, don't you? If you're doing something that you enjoy, which then the tension's all gone, and therefore the effort is all. It's easier then, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. If you're doing something that you enjoy, it's never hard work.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
So when you first went to America then, to the first Talent ID camp, and how old were you then? 16?
I would have been 17 by the time I went to the first Talent ID camp.
And how was that experience as a young man?
Incredible, really. Like nothing I've ever experienced before. We've been on family holidays to Florida and places like that.
Yeah.
But this is far different. This is like real America, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
It isn't Disneyland. And, it was an amazing experience, really. Like seeing this place, which is quite alien, and I think one of the most amazing things for me is that I've been diagnosed with diabetes in such a short amount of time that meeting all these, everybody there, most people have got type 1, there's 30 other athletes with you and they're all in the same position. It was amazing to see that, really, and learn from people who had got much more experience than myself, and learn from the medical team and the medical staff about managing your condition and getting the best out of yourself. It was just a mind-blowing experience. I was absolutely buzzing when I got home. I think I stopped talking about it for probably until the next camp I went to the year after.
Lou, how do you cope? What's the practicalities of coping with diabetes and the daily or more than once daily injections into the training regime?
Well, we train just like any other cyclist. Professional, non-professional would. I mean, diabetes is no limitation on your capabilities, but I would say it's an extra consideration to include in what you do. You've just got to think about making those decisions. Maybe a good example is when you're training your nutrition on the bike is probably more so important than it would be for a normal athlete, because you've got to keep an eye on your blood sugar and make sure that you're not going too high or too low. Because once you start going out of range, that does start affecting your performance. So yeah, it's about it, really. It's not a massive. It's definitely not a disadvantage at all to anybody.
I think that's good. I think that's a really important message. It's a manageable condition. That helps you become more aware often. Or the understanding of it, or for those people who are aware of their diabetes, it helps them manage their diet. It helps them manage their approach to sport and recreation, and kind of keeping themselves as fit and healthy as they can be.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say that diabetes has actually made me a better athlete than I ever was before I got diagnosed, because it kind of encouraged me to become more diligent about when I was training, what training I was doing, what you're eating on the bike, off the bike, your recovery, everything that you made much more aware of that and a much better athlete as a result.
I think that's a common conversation I've had with my nephew Fraser, whose rugby training has kind of improved no end because he's much more aware of his condition. It's made him more aware. Also with the Leicester Changing Diabetes project within the city here in Leicester, that's a message that comes out. It's on an everyday basis with people that they are working with to improve, become aware of and address diabetes as something that people live with and manage, and people do cope with it incredibly well. That's really good to hear as a professional that it's the same.
Yeah, that's our mission as a team and an organisation to show people that anything is possible with diabetes. There's no limit. Well, there's nothing stopping you from doing whatever you want to go out and achieve. You can just go and do it. You'll have to work a little bit harder, but that's a good part about it, really. That you've got to show yourself as a different individual and as someone who's committed to getting what they want to go and achieve.
We're really grateful of Team Novo Nordisk and Leicester Changing Diabetes support for the Ride Leicester Festival. It's we're about engaging with as wide an audience and as wide a range of abilities as possible. So we're really grateful that you've taken time out to join us today. Can I ask you a question about COVID-19 as well? I mean, that's a slightly different scenario, but it's context for a lot of people. Has that affected your professional training and the operation of the team?
It has affected our season because most of the races this year have been cancelled or postponed till next year. From a training point of view, it hasn't really affected a whole lot. I've been out riding by myself for months on end, which sometimes it isn't the most enjoyable. It's nice to go out and ride with your teammates and ride with friends, but you've got to do what you've got to do. Like it's a privilege to ride your bike full time, so you can't complain about riding alone. However, sorry, I'll let you go.
No. I was just going to say, can you just scare us now? How many miles a week are you doing?
Miles. I don't work in miles.
Oh, don't you? Oh, that's interesting. What is it? Time on the bike?
Generally, I'll look at time on the bike.
Yeah.
Or if I'm measuring distance, usually in kilometres, but that's pushed by the racing in different countries. Everybody else uses kilometres, and for years I was using miles, and then suddenly everybody's talking kilometres. I'm not sure what they're talking about. So
just sounds like they're doing more.
Yeah, exactly. That's just what they say, isn't it? They said I did more kilometres than you did miles or whatever. So I forgot the question.
Yeah, no, I was just interested in kind of what your training program looks like currently, and that idea that it's.
An average week for me would probably be about 19 hours on the bike.
Okay.
An easier week would probably be looking maybe about 14, and then a big week is probably pushing 24, 25 hours training.
Wow.
And I'm guessing that's at about 25 miles an hour, so we can do the math.
I wish I was that fast. But no, I mean, we generally, as cyclists nowadays, people don't tend to work off average speed. They use power meters to measure the amount of force you're putting through the pedals. Because, as you know, as people who cycle as well, so many things can affect your average speed, whether you've gone more uphill than you did last time, or there's the wind's blowing in your face the whole way around. That's a classic one. That you did a loop all the way around and you had a headwind the whole way.
Yeah, I get that all the time. If you want to know which way the wind's blowing, put me on the bike, it'll be in my face.
Yeah, that's the one. You get a change in wind direction as well.
Lou, Sam Brands was kind enough to do, and he did a 90-second video for us with some top tips for cycling. What would be your top 3 tips for people who are going out on a weekend or cycling to work?
my top 3 tips would be try and be as safe as you can. You know, wear your helmet, wear your reflective gear. Second one would be do what you enjoy. I say that to a lot of people. If you enjoy riding down the canal, then go and ride down the canal. If you enjoy riding to the cafe and stopping and drinking 5 coffees, go and do that. You know, I think it's paramount that you go out and do what you enjoy on the bike. And third, I would say, don't worry about what other people think. As cyclists, you know, generally you get perceived as bow of the roadies. You can say we're probably not the most liked bunch of road users, but people always have their opinions. So get out there and just go for it. If you enjoy it, do it.
That sounds fantastic.
There's just a couple of things I wanted to say, Lou. So you're a former rugby player, so you come from a good pedigree of rugby players to cyclists. So a very famous Leicester rugby player, Martin Johnson, rugby, you know, the World Cup winning captain, is a huge cyclist now. So yeah, you've got a good pedigree there, and I just want to quickly ask you about in the future, what would be your aspiration? Would you see yourself more as a tour that, you know, a 5-day tour, or do you fancy the spring classics?
I would almost say for me it's that I'm still in such an early part of my career that it's kind of tough to say what I might become. At the moment, I would rather a 1-day spring classics kind of guy, because it's more similar to what I'm used to, riding through the mud and through the cold.
The pavé.
But who's to say that I don't keep progressing and end up becoming someone who can compete right up there for winning longer tours and mountaintop finishes. It's kind of all out there for me at the minute.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, look, wherever it takes you, good luck with it. We really appreciate your time today and your support for the Ride Leicester Festival. Good luck with Team Novo Nordisk, and thanks to Leicester Changing Diabetes. Will you come back in future and when you and have some conversations with us? We'd like to stay in touch.
I mean, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure, and definitely I'd be more than happy to come back on another time and speak with you again. It's been really enjoyable.
That'd be brilliant. And say hello to Thomas for us.
Yeah, I will do that.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Lou. Bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Cheers.